Joining us now from North Carolina is the purveyor of BernardGoldberg.com. And I checked that out, and I am very busy. So BernardGoldberg.com, I check in. So you say you support the action, but you're not a big Trump fan. So explain that to me.
It's not that I'm not a big Trump fan. My basis, I'm an opinion journalist now. But like you, I was a hard news journalist for a long time. So I come to my conclusions based on facts. So sometimes I agree with Donald Trump, sometimes I don't. In this case, I'm totally with President Trump. He did the right thing. Iran was never going to voluntarily give up their nuclear program. For decades, they strung one president after another, they strung them along. And they pretended that diplomacy was going to lead to Iran, the mullahs, giving up their nuclear dreams and passions. They made one big mistake, Bill. They assumed Donald Trump was like all the other presidents they were dealing with. Donald Trump was different from all the others, and he showed them how different he was on Saturday night. I'm totally with him on this.
So it doesn't have anything to do with Israel, and you're Jewish, right?
No, I'll tell you what it has to. No, it doesn't. But I'll tell you what it does have to do with. It has to do with risks being weighed against other risks. So, is there a risk that Iran will do something stupid? Is there a risk that they may widen and escalate the war? Yeah, there's a risk, of course. Like you correctly said, if anybody tells you what's coming next, don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
But against that risk, Bill, you have to weigh the risk of a country run by zealot Islamist clerics having a nuclear weapon.
And they're haters.
And I'm not
haters and killers.
And I'm not taking the risk of them having a weapon like that.
They knew about October 7th. They knew that Hamas was going to go over and slaughter those people in the kibbutz. Iran knew. And that was really, I think, what put Trump over the line. Yeah, the nuke thing, obviously, you can't allow a rogue regime that is on the record is we're going to kill every Jew we can and we're going to kill Americans too, to have a bomb that they might be able to disassemble and give to a terrorist and set it off someplace. Now, you and I are simpatico, and I think we've made a very logical case so far. We're 19 minutes into this broadcast. But then you have the isolationists in the Republican Party who they don't care whether Iran has a nuclear weapon or not. That's kind of strange, don't you think?
I think it's immoral. I find it interesting that the isolationist wing of the Republican Party sounds a lot like the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. But beyond that, how is it moral to say, well, they won't put it in these words. I want to be fair to them. They won't say we don't care that they have a nuclear weapon. As a matter of fact, they'll say we don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. But if you're going to be an isolationist, then what you're really saying, what it really comes down to, is if they use it against Israel and kills 10 million Jews, Hitler only got 6 million, not our problem. America first, not our problem.
But it is our problem because, look, that's just such a sophomoric point of view. Just on its face, don't take the Israeli Jew thing out. So if you have a nuclear weapon that goes off on this planet anywhere, you set civilization back 10 years. Everybody is affected. Everybody.
So this gets back to my point about risk versus risk. They only talk about the risk of a wider war. Fair enough. That is a concern. But they don't talk about the risk that you just talked about and that I talked about in the column that's on my website. They don't talk about the risk of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini having a nuclear weapon. How could you not? You have to stop that. You have to stop that. And that's what Donald Trump did. And I'll criticize him when I think he does something that's not in his or our best interest, but I'm going to praise him when he does the right thing. And this time he did the right thing.
I'm trying to get inside the mind, and I will do this with Bowling tomorrow. Eric Bowling will be on, as I mentioned, of these isolationists, because they're not dumb people. Rand Paul is not a dumb person, neither is Tucker Carlson or Steve Bannon. They're not. But I think it's a stubbornness now that's set in, and they get an awful lot of attention doing this as well. I think there's an attention factor here.
Well, I understand their concern. It's not just words, it's a philosophy. And the philosophy is we don't want to get involved in other people's problems, as if the United States is a bystander in all of this. And Iraq is weighing on all of this too. We tried to change the landscape of the Mideast once, and I don't think that turned out too well.
No, but it's a different situation than Iraq.
But that's hanging over this whole discussion.
Yeah, but they're using that to make a false equivalency. So, I mean, it's like the Panama invasion compared to World War II. Iraq.
And you know why it's an unfair comparison? I'll tell you why. And you know why. Because we're dealing with a nuclear bomb right now.
Right. It's so much more intense. And the Iraq situation was a miscalculation. I mean, those people say, oh, the government lied to us about, they knew that Saddam didn't have that. That is so much garbage. Saddam told his generals, all right, that he had the weapons because he wanted to intimidate those generals. And that's what the New York Times reported. And that's why it got out of control. Now, final question for you. When we're looking at the landscape here, I picked out a few people. And I don't like to do this. In my younger days, I did it more. But now I'm watching people attack other people personally for money. And this is what they do on social media. They attack people personally, they get more eyeballs, and they can sell ads. It's about money. Okay, that's why they're doing it. I think when I single out a Chuck Schumer, am I being too harsh on the senator?
Well, when you said he's a blanking hypocrite, what word did you mean when you said blanking?
I don't want to shock you. I don't want to shock your sensibilities, Goldberg. But since you worked in the CBS newsroom for like 50 years, you've heard the real word before.
Here's the thing that gets me about Chuck Schumer. He had a perfect score on his SATs before he went to Harvard. He's a bright guy.
Yeah.
What a wasted use of intellect to become a political hack. That's my take on Chuck Schumer.
I sit there and does he think that guys like me are not going to trace him back to what he did when Obama dropped the bombs on Libya? And you have a totally different position. And then when you ask him about it, he'll never do an interview. He'll never, ever go, answer those questions. Look, Ocasio-Cortez, I said this on Piers Morgan. I went on his show tonight. And I said, look, I don't want to be uncharitable to a fellow terrier. So I have a degree from Boston University as well. But she's simply not smart enough to hold the job as a congressperson. She's just not smart enough.
You don't have to be that smart.
No, but she's not smart even at your low bar. Okay? She doesn't even reach your low bar. That's the frame of reference that woman has. Zero. And I had to say it to put it into some kind of perspective. Like, for me to pick on her would be, like kicking a little Cocker Spaniel. It's not fair. Schumer, another matter.
I know how much you dislike cliches. And so do I. I dislike them as much as you do. But here's one. Donald Trump could find a cure for cancer, and she'd be opposed to Donald Trump for finding a cure for cancer. So let's not take her that seriously.
No, I agree with that. And that's why I didn't. But the other guy from Illinois, but they both should be brought up in front of this. You don't object to that, right? Health Ethics Committee, while we have people in the field, you're doing this?
I think no matter what your political philosophy, you don't do something that jeopardizes American military forces while they're in the midst of an operation. You don't do that.
It's just almost impossible to believe that these people are that stupid that they would do it. They didn't think about it. They just want to run out there and pander their far left base. All right, the website is bernardgoldberg.com. It's like BillO'Reilly.com, except my name is Irish and Goldberg is Jewish. It's just put the both names in, and then you'll get two good websites. Appreciate it, Bernie. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on X. Look for @Bill O'Reilly.